Well, week 3 of the 2024 NFL season was actually bonkers. The Panthers had a huge bounce-back game. The Bengals, Jags, and Titans remain winless as Will Levis is literally addicted to turning the ball over. Then the Bills and Vikings are rolling. I mean, there's so many takeaways and surprises from these games, so we got to get into it right after. All right, first up, if I told you before the season that the Vikings, Steelers, and Seahawks would be some of the few remaining undefeated teams after 3 weeks, there's no way most of you would have believed me. This isn't to knock Seattle, but of those 3 teams, their schedule has certainly been the least difficult. They beat the Broncos at home in Bo Nix's NFL debut. Then they barely got by the Patriots in overtime week 2. And this week they played the Dolphins without Tua. And to their credit, they dominated them 24-3, even though the Dolphins had to put in their third-string QB after Skylar Thompson also went down due to injury. The Steelers have been impressive largely due to their defense. They've given up the fewest amount of points through 3 weeks. And while they haven't exactly lit up the scoreboard on offense, they have only 1 turnover on the season. So yeah, as long as Justin Fields keeps taking care of the ball and the Steelers keep winning these ugly games, Fields is going to remain the starter in Pittsburgh, and I don't think anyone saw that coming after they signed Russell Wilson this offseason. To be fair to Let's Ride, though, Russell is still dealing with that calf issue, so we'll see what happens when he gets healthy and out there and he's ready to go, what they will do as far as a quarterback decision goes, although as long as Fields keeps playing like this, I think it's his job to lose. Now, the team I really want to zero in on is the Minnesota Vikings. Nobody expected them to be 3-0 right now. Look at this article from BetGM, for example. Their preseason win total was set at 6.5. And listen to this, quote, by the time week 8 arrives, there's a real possibility Minnesota could find itself 0-8. Whoever wrote that article needs fired. Look, I get it. Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback, and that's why nobody picked him to be a playoff contender before the season. But Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are coaching out of their minds right now and getting the most out of their squad. Look at who they've played against as well. They blew out the Giants in week 1, which, yeah, big deal. But they then beat the 49ers in week 2 and just dominated the Texans 34-7 in week 3, with Houston being favored to win that game. Sam Darnold currently leads the NFL in passing touchdowns with 8. Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson, and Aaron Jones has been a huge boost in the run game. They're the 3rd highest scoring offense through 3 weeks, and they haven't had Jordan Addison the last 2 games and are still without TJ Hawkinson as he recovers from his ACL tear last year. Then for the defense, they're allowing only 10 points per game right now, which is second only behind the Steelers. They lead the league in sacks with 16 and are the only team in the last 20 years to have 5 or more sacks in each of their first 3 games of the season. That is an insane stat, and it seems like right now the Minnesota Vikings are the real deal, as crazy as that is to say. Now, another team in the Vikings division is the Chicago Bears. Before the season, everyone was hyping Caleb Williams all the way up as the next Patrick Mahomes and saying he's coming into the best situation of any starting rookie QB with all the weapons he has. I mean, he does have a lot of weapons. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, plus they drafted Rome Odunze 9th overall. Well, through 3 weeks, the Bears are 1-2, and Caleb Williams has the 6th worst completion percentage, the 4th worst QBR, is tied for 3rd with the most interceptions, and has the 3rd lowest yards per attempt. In his defense, his O-line is abysmal, and he's taken the 3rd most sacks in the league. But part of that is due to him running around trying to extend plays like he's still in college. I know it's still very early, and he did look better this week against the Colts, but they've given up the 2nd most yards in the entire league. So it makes sense that he had his best game against them. Now, Caleb Williams could still end up having a Hall of Fame career for all I know, but how about we just slow down on the Caleb Williams hype for a bit and let the guy settle in? I mean, the biggest reason the Bears even have 1 win is because of Will Levis. He loves turning the ball over even more than he loves bathing in mayonnaise. Now, it's not uncommon for a second-year quarterback to struggle with turnovers, but what is uncommon is how bad some of those turnovers have looked. In week 1, for example, he threw perhaps the dumbest pick 6 I've ever seen. Then in week 2, he followed that up by trying to shovel the ball back to Tyjae Spears as he was falling to the ground, which resulted in a fumble. Well, this week, he got body slammed to the ground on this play here, then tried to go airborne on 4th and 2 from pretty far behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's not making that even if he was Superman. He also threw yet another pick 6, this time to Jair Alexander, who read him like a book as he was targeting DeAndre Hopkins. And finally, To add insult to injury, he got teabagged by this Packers lineman after getting strip sacked. I actually feel bad for the guy who is officially becoming a meme. Now, on a serious note, let's stay on this game for a moment because another surprise to start the season is the resurgence of Malik Willis, or maybe the surgence of Malik Willis. I mean, I don't know how you can resurge if you've never surged, but he's coming off an impressive performance over the Colts in week 2, and he once again got it done in place of Jordan Love, this time against his former team in week 3. He led them to another win, dominating the Titans 30-14, and he had yet another solid performance. He made this throw to Christian Watson and put it where only he could get it. Then he finished the drive himself by keeping it on the option here and rushing in for the score. He picked up multiple first downs with his legs and really flashed his athleticism. I mean, look at this throw, for example, on 3rd and 18. An absolute dart to Christian Watson to move the chains. He finished the game 13 of 19 for 202 yards in this touchdown that came on a screen to Emmanuel Wilson. Plus, he led the Packers in rushing with 73 yards and a touchdown on just 6 carries. When Jordan Love went down with that MCL sprain in week 1, I thought the Packers were potentially cooked until he returned, but Malik Willis has been balling out and definitely deserves major credit for going 2-0 in his stead. I also feel like a big shout out for Matt LaFleur is deserved here. He really is up there with one of the best coaches in the NFL, and seeing how well he's adapted the offense with a quarterback like Malik Willis, utilizing his strengths, I mean, it just goes to show you how good he is. So, one QB rises and another falls as Bryce Young was benched after last week's blowout loss to the Chargers. Benching last year's first overall pick just 2 games into the season with a new coach sounds pretty extreme, but he was playing extremely bad, so they kind of had to. He was 13 of 30 for 161 yards and 2 picks in week 1, though he couldn't even crack 100 yards last week as he finished 18 of 26 for 84 yards and a pick. Not great, and honestly, I kind of feel for the guy. If you listen to him in his presser after getting benched, he was nothing but respectful. He was interviewed by the media, I think, in the locker room, saying basically if he would have made plays, he would be the starter, so he trusts their decision, and he's got to earn that spot back. Well, Dave Canales, after benching Bryce Young, made the decision to start the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, this week. And while I thought he would play better than Bryce Young, I didn't expect him to go scorched earth on the Raiders, and as a Chiefs fan, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This man was slinging the rock like a dealer in the crack house, fitting balls into tight windows and picking apart the Raiders' defense. He connected with 8 different receivers and winded up throwing for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson was going crazy, catching 8 balls for 122 yards and one of those scores, and their offense was firing on all cylinders. They beat the piss out of Vegas 36-22, but were up 33-7 at one point. It's safe to say the red-bearded dragon is going to be the starter for the rest of the season, at least if he keeps playing like this. Again, I feel bad for Bryce Young, and I hope for his sake they can trade him maybe to a team that actually has a capable coaching staff so he can develop and get his career on track. Someone who finally got on track this week was Bo Nix. We all know that Sean Payton was obsessed with this man during the draft process and probably built a shrine of him in his man cave, but things were looking dicey for the 12th overall pick as he was a turnover machine in his first 2 starts. Heading into this week, Bo had 4 INTs and 0 touchdowns, with the Broncos sitting at 0-2 and facing a tough 2-0 Buccaneers team that was coming off a road win against the Lions. Tampa Bay was 5.5-point favorites, and I definitely thought they were going to beat the brakes off Denver. But the Broncos played a well-rounded game on offense and were stingy as hell on defense, forcing a couple of turnovers. The Broncos O-line was sturdy and gave Bo Nix time to pick apart the defense as he didn't take a single sack and finished 25 of 36 for 216 yards. Nix got things started with this rushing touchdown. Then after Brandon Jones picked off Baker, Jaleel McLaughlin took the pitch and put a nasty move on the D-end to get in to the end zone. Denver was up 17-0 at one point and steamrolled their way to a 26-7 upset dub to give them their first win of the year. The Baltimore Ravens also got their first win of the year, but they let it get pretty sketchy down the stretchy after going up 28-6 on the Cowboys. They needed this win bad, though, after falling to 0-2, and for the first 3 quarters, they were rolling like Limp Bizkit. Things got interesting in the 4th quarter, though, when Justin Tucker missed a 46-yard field goal, which is very uncharacteristic for him. Dallas marched down the field, and Dak scored on the QB sneak, but they couldn't get the 2-point conversion, and the score was 28-12. Then with almost 9 minutes left in the game, they went for the onside kick and actually got it after Zay Flowers muffed the recovery. Dak hit Jalen Tolbert in the middle of the end zone to make it a 10-point game. but they couldn't get the 2-point conversion. They forced the Ravens to punt and got the ball back with a little over 5 minutes to go, and again drove down the field. On 3rd and 10 in the red zone, Dak floated this one to Kevontae Turpin for the touchdown, and this brought them within 3 points. They marched all the way back and had the momentum, just needing one more stop to give their offense another chance. The Ravens ran on 1st and 2nd, forcing Dallas to burn 2 timeouts. Then on 3rd and 6, Lamar hit Zay Flowers to pick up a huge first down. Then on 2nd and 9, Lamar kept it and took it up the middle to pick up the first and put the game on ice. A big win for the Ravens to prevent them from starting the season 0-3. But it's definitely concerning that they let the Cowboys back into the game after being up 28-6 at one point, as I said earlier on in this segment. Then they were up 23-13 last week against the Raiders in the 4th quarter until their offense sputtered and Vegas came back to win. Another 1-2 team that's a bit surprising is the 49ers. They went up 14-0 on the Rams and looked like they were about to blow them out despite being without CMC, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. The Rams just got blown out last week by the Cardinals, and in fairness to them, they've also been decimated by injuries. Puka Nacua and John Johnson are on IR. Cooper Kupp, he's not on IR, but he's going to miss multiple weeks with an ankle injury, and their O-line has been eaten alive by the injury bug. Anyway, after going down by 14, Kyren Williams caught this ball over the middle and said, "Hold my nuts," as he flipped into the end zone. Purdy hit a wide open Jawan Jennings to put them up 21-7, and Jennings had the game of his life, by the way. 11 catches for 175 yards and scored all 3 49ers touchdowns. Freaking crazy. Kyren Williams, though, scored all 3 of the Rams touchdowns, which is pretty wild. His second one of the day brought the Rams back within 7. Then LA got the red zone stop to force a field goal and make it 24-14 with 12 minutes to go. Demarcus Robinson couldn't come up with this one, though, and the Rams hit a field goal of their own. Now, this was huge. Jake Moody missed a 55-yard field goal that would have made it a 2-score game again, and Stafford threw a bomb to Tutu Atwell that set up Kyren Williams' 3rd touchdown. So, with less than 2 minutes remaining, the Niners tried to move into field goal range, but Purdy couldn't escape here on 3rd down, and the Niners had to punt. And back waiting for that punt was Xavier Smith, a former UDFA who was on the Rams practice squad and was elevated for this game. The punt return was his first ever NFL touch, and he brought it 38 yards up the right sideline to put LA at the 50-yard line with 55 seconds left. A PI call then put them at the 25, and rookie kicker Joshua Carty drilled the 37-yard game winner to give the Rams their first win of the season. Now, 2 teams that did not get their first win of the season were the Jags and the Bengals. The Jags played the Bills for one of the 2 Monday night matchups. I'm not a fan of 2 Monday night games, just for the record, but they got freaking obliterated. Their offense was downright putrid, and their defense couldn't stop the Bills if their lives depended on it. Josh Allen put on an absolute clinic, throwing for 263 yards and 4 touchdowns. All of those touchdowns were in the first half, I might add, and each score went to a different receiver. Here's a fun little stat as well to further illustrate his performance. He completed 75% of his passes, had no turnovers, took no sacks, and led his team in rushing yards, becoming the first quarterback in NFL history to do that in the same game. Meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence became the first quarterback in NFL history to look like sunshine from Remember the Titans, but unfortunately, that doesn't equate to wins. Something else that was pretty cool for Bills fans was Damar Hamlin got his first ever career interception in this game, picking off Trevor Lawrence as he overthrew his intended target. And Lawrence is definitely struggling. He's lost 8 regular season starts in a row going back to last season, and currently has the 3rd worst completion percentage, the 7th lowest QBR, and that is a definite factor as to why the Jags find themselves at 0-3. It's a bigger mess over there than just Lawrence, but he is definitely part of the problem. They are now one of the 3 teams that are winless, along with the Titans, makes sense, Will Levis, and the Bengals, being the other after last night's wild loss to the Commanders. That's right, the Bengals hosted the Commanders for the second Monday night game, and they were very generous hosts because they let the Commanders offense have whatever they wanted. Now, this was not a blowout like the other Monday night game, even though by the end of this game, it was not within reach, but it was surprising how solid Washington's offense looked, especially for a college offense. To be fair, both offenses looked pretty good for the most part. They played so well that it was the first NFL game since 1940 with 0 turnovers or punts, which is pretty crazy. What's also crazy is how in control of this game the Commanders really were. Cincy did score first, but the Commanders scored 3 touchdowns on their next 3 drives and held the lead for basically the entire game. And the actual kill shot was made on this play here. 2 minutes and 15 seconds or so left in the game on 3rd and 7. The Bengals sent the house and Jayden Daniels lofted up a beautiful 27-yard pass to Scary Terry, and he hauled it in for the touchdown, an incredible throw and catch that put the Commanders up by 2 scores. And this play was so insane that according to Next Gen Stats, it was the most improbable touchdown of the season at just 10.3%. This capped off the best rookie performance by a QB so far this season, and arguably one of the best by any quarterback in the league. He threw for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also running for 39 yards and another touchdown. And oh yeah, he actually had more touchdowns than incomplete passes. 3 scores, 2 incompletions. He was 21 of 23 on the night, a 91.3 completion percentage, which is now the record for the highest completion percentage by a rookie with at least 20 attempts in NFL history. He's completed just over 80% of his passes this season, which is first in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. Now, as for the Bengals, their offense was actually pretty good. They put up 33 points, albeit their last touchdown was basically garbage time, and Joe Burrow ended the night with over 300 yards and 3 scores. Jamar Chase had his best game of the season, eclipsing 100 yards and catching 2 touchdowns himself, but their defense let them down big time, and now they are 0-3 and sitting at the bottom of a very tough division. Bengals corner Cam Taylor-Britt said before the game that the Commanders run a college-style offense and doubled down sort of on those comments even after they got their asses handed to them. Head coach Zach Taylor insists that this is not who they are, but I mean, they've proven over and over again that it is indeed who they are. They talk a big game, can't back it up. I mean, for a team that hasn't even sniffed a Super Bowl W, you think they'd be a little more humble, but what do I know? Anyway, with that, Week 3 is in the books, and it was another banger. A lot of interesting storylines and unexpected outcomes. That is life in the NFL. So make sure to let me know your thoughts on the biggest Week 3 surprises, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.
Huddle.